When solving the equation 4 times the quantity 3x squared plus 2 minus 9 is equal to 8x squared plus 7, Emily wrote 4 times the quantity 3x squared plus 2 equals 8x squared plus 16 as her first step. Which property justifies Emily's first step? And then there are 4 properties here. So the idea is to figure out which property, which of these 4 allowed us to go from 4, and I'm going to write them over here so we can look at them one after the other, to go from this equation, 8x squared plus 7, this equation here, to this equation here. So I'm going to write that one right underneath it so we can compare them side by side. Equals 8x squared plus 16. Okay, so there's some property that allows us to take this equation and go to this equation. And it's going to be one of these 4. So let's do a quick review of each of these 4 properties. So the first one, the addition property of equality. So right away you're thinking, well, addition, that's probably to add, and equality, oftentimes we think of that as equals or an equation. This allows you to take an equation such as x minus 7 is equal to 10 and add both sides to the equation, addition property of equality. So the first step here to solve this equation, we would add 7 to both sides of the equal sign. And that would, minus 7 plus 7 becomes 0, and we have x equals 10 plus 7 is 17. So this idea of adding one thing to one side and the same thing to the other side is allowable by the addition property of equality. That says that this equation is equal to this equation. So that's the addition property of equality. That's answer choice 1. Then we have the commutative property of addition. So that says that if you have any equation or expression, so let's just take an expression like 2x plus 5. When you have the idea of addition, when you're adding two things, you can add them in any order. So 2x plus 5 is the same thing as 5 plus 2x. Similarly, adding two numbers like 9 plus 17 is the same thing as 17 plus 9. And if you look, 26 and 26. Or if you have, x plus 3y and 3y plus x, you can add. You'll get this. This represents the same quantity. So you can rearrange the order of adding, and that's allowable by the commutative property of addition. Number 3 is the multiplication property of equality. So you might see some similarity between number 1 and 3. This is the addition property of equality. Number 3 is the multiplication property of equality. So there's a relationship here. There's similarity. So as in number 1 that allowed you to add both sides to the equation, number 3, multiplication property of equality, allows you to multiply both sides of the equation. So let's set up an equation like x divided by 7 is equal to 10. So an equation like this where we have division, you might think, well, the way we could solve that would be to multiply both sides by 7. And when you do that, you get 7x over 7, which just simplifies to x, or 1x. And this gives you 10 times 7 is 70. So this step here, when you're multiplying each side of the equation by the same number, is permissible by the multiplication property of equality. And then number 4, the distributive property of multiplication over addition. So the distributive property, if you recall, that involves taking some quantity on the outside of parentheses, like maybe 10, and then something inside the parentheses, another quantity, and we're going to be adding them together. So something maybe like 10 plus 17. And the distributive property of multiplication says that this expression here is going to be the same thing as the expression if you multiply or distribute this guy outside to each thing inside. So 10 times x is 10x, and 10 times 17 is 170, with the addition in the middle. So this expression and this expression are equivalent, and that's the case because of the distributive property of multiplication over addition. So we have 4 different properties here, and we got to go back to our original question, which is which property takes us from this equation down to this equation. So let's compare. We have this equation here, and it looks like Emily may be solving this equation. Maybe not, but looks like she's definitely doing something to it. And the thing that changes is this minus 9 is no longer here, and the 7 is now a 16. So, well, what happened? Well, we know that the 7 became a 16, and that happens if you add 9 to it, and the minus 9 becomes nothing, And well, how do you get nothing from minus 9? Well, if you add 9 to minus 9, or add 9 to negative 9, you get 0. So what happened here was we added 9 to give us 0, and we don't have to write plus 0. And we also added 9 to this side to give us 16. So since we're adding 9 to the left side of the equation, and we're adding 9 to the right side of the equation, let me circle that. Since we're adding 9 to the left side of the equation, and we're adding 9 to the right side of the equation, what we're actually doing here is adding the same thing to both sides, which is allowable by the addition property of equality. So the answer is number 1.